One, two, three. Mic check. Mic check. One, two, three. All right. All right. All right. So, yeah, we're in the middle of this. Let's see what else is up in the universe, in the multiverse. Oh, this looks interesting.
Pertaining to respond to my 2 videos on him. And I actually think this is the first response video.
It's happening.
What's this?
Hello, everyone. Here we go. We are looking at some more.
Wow. What else? The latest on what is seen inside a proton and confirms dipole electron flood theory. Anatomy of the proton. The end of Assad.
Major new piece of evidence in the hands of investigators as federal authorities widen the urgent manhunt for a killer who repeatedly shot an insurance company CEO in New York City and methodically fled the scene. Here's ABC senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky.
After a frantic 3-day manhunt, tonight the NYPD now believes the suspect who gunned down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson has escaped New York City. Last seen riding out of Central Park on a bike after the shooting, police say the suspect hopped into a taxi, headed to the bus station by the George Washington Bridge, and made his getaway.
We're asking every New Yorker and American to look at.
So he's in Mexico or South America. I don't know how much he was paid for this.
At the picture, the photo, and to assist us. If you know him, if his face looks familiar, please reach out to our law enforcement.
Late today, the NYPD deploying drones and an army of
Why? I mean, he fled to New Jersey, from there to Newark Airport, and it's an international airport. That's it. He's done.
Army of officers across Central Park to search for the gunman's backpack. A source tells ABC News they discovered this backpack, believed to have belonged to the suspect. Police sources tell ABC.
That's a high-end backpack.
Tell ABC News investigators now believe the suspect arrived in New York November 24th, 10 days before the shooting, on a Greyhound bus boarding somewhere between Atlanta and Washington, D.C. Detectives are using facial recognition technology on the only clear images of the suspect's face, captured when a clerk checking him into a hostel asked to see his smile so she could compare his face to his ID, which sources say was fake. Police also pulled DNA from items recovered near the scene, including a cell phone.
This is why it should be illegal to cover your face in public.
Along with a smudged fingerprint off a water bottle the suspect bought at a Starbucks minutes before the murder. Investigators are also working to determine the motive. The words deny. Along with a smudged fingerprint off a water bottle the suspect bought at a Starbucks minutes before the murder. Investigators are also working to determine the motive. The words deny, defend, and depose found on the shell casings, a possible reference to ways insurance companies avoid paying patient medical claims. Protesters have targeted United Healthcare, which reportedly denies 1 of every 3 claims.
I think this shooter is trying to send a message that someone, either himself or a loved one or someone close to him, has been harmed by this insurance.
The problem is the legislature. We have too much bureaucracy. So there's no economic freedom when it comes to insurance, healthcare, medicine, medical. The whole thing is overwhelmed with regulations and legislature. So it's basically fascism. It's basically government run. So when things are government run, it's terrible. Compare that to an iPhone, which is much more wait, what's this? Can you see this? If you can see this. No, you can't see it. Okay. Yeah, that's very dangerous. What is this? What is this? Something is trying to run. Burn elevated? Burn pipe? What? Local temp? It's running from local temp? I mean, this looks like let's see the certificate. This looks this doesn't look good. Looks like something is trying to attack me. Is somebody trying to attack me? It's not showing me the certificate. This is weird. It's running from local temp, some executable called Windows Desktop Runtime minus burn elevated burn pipe. I mean, it's using a switch, burn elevated burn pipe. That doesn't sound good. And minus Q means quiet. Quietly, it's trying to run quietly. Looks like I'm under attack. Somebody's trying to attack me. How? From where? Where is this coming from? What? Verified publisher. It says verified publisher. Really weird. But it's not showing me the certificate. Really, really weird. Let me take a snapshot because this is really weird. Really, really weird. Really weird. Let me take a snapshot of the whole computer and a snapshot just of the message. It doesn't have any recognition. Really weird. Really, really weird. Really weird. Okay, we have a snapshot. Can I copy this? No, there's nothing I can copy. So, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? No. All right. The setting app browser control the setting to block potentially unwanted app downloads is turned off. Your device may be vulnerable. You can't see it? Interesting. So you can't see me running Windows security. So it doesn't capture Windows security. That's good. So view latest protection actions and recommendations. So the computer wasn't being protected? It's probably going to discover it in the background. I'm surprised it allowed it to go this far. This is really weird. Unless it's like normal, something normal was running. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. Okay.
By this insurance company.
Today, value-based care is the centerpiece of our growth strategy.
Thompson, seen here at last year's investors conference, was on his way to this year's meeting, walking alone without security when he was gunned down. Now other corporations are rethinking security for their top executives. Thompson's murder has unleashed an outpouring of anger on social media toward the health insurance industry. And tonight, several companies are pulling executive profiles off their websites.
I mean, this is Marxism. This is communism. This is very bad. Very bad. The question is does Trump understand the cause and effect? It's not that the insurance companies are evil. There is no evil. There is, as what's his name? What was this?
Major new
Milton Friedman said, the system creates incentives. The system is always the problem. You cannot blame individuals for anything. It's the system, it's the built-in incentives that are always a problem.
There are so many examples of dynamical systems, and the more you study them, the more you'll start to notice them in your everyday life. A bouncing ball, traffic flow, vortex formation, magnetic levitation, planetary orbits, the Lorentz attractor, and so on. They are not exactly the same, but these are all examples of dynamical systems. A fair question to ask right off the bat is, what is a system?
A system in this context is a mathematical object that has inputs, outputs, and states. We'll talk more about them throughout the video. But first of all, it's useful to think of dynamical systems as situations where the state, so positions and velocities, evolves over time based on specific rules.
F-35C. C is the one for carriers. It doesn't have VTOL. It doesn't have vertical takeoff and landing. So it can manipulate the nozzle. You call this a nozzle? The exhaust. It can manipulate it, but not vertically. And there's no opening at the top. So it doesn't have the mechanism for VTOL. It's bigger wings, folding wings, stronger chassis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your friendly neighborhood Birdman here. I was doing some research while working on my Flatzoid response, and to my surprise, he made another video, this time looking at Professor Dave. If you don't know Professor Dave, he's a big creator here on YouTube. He talks about science, and he does do debunking type videos. So Dave responded to Lord Jamar, the same exact video that I did, and Flatzoid had something to say about it. Now, the reason I know about this is because I was looking at Flatzoid's channel because I'm working on a response to his response to my response, you know, the infinite regress. And I guarantee you he's going to live stream this video, so even more infinite. And hello to the 5 people watching his stream.
So anyway, I was like thinking what we can do tonight, and then I saw a stream from not a Professor Dave.
It's usually black men who are flat earthers, but in this case, it's the black guy who is the anti-flats.
If playing the drinking game on Lord Jamal's interview, the same one that Mr. Birdbrain himself.
Anyway, it's always, I think it's always very high IQ people who are susceptible to conspiracy theories.
If playing the drinking game on Lord Jamal's interview, the same one that Mr. Birdbrain himself,
hey.
Birdman, did.
Birdman mentioned.
I'll be interested to see if he has any better ways of debunking this, that discussion with Lord Jamal than what the Birdman did.
It's such a weird thing to say, to go, not a Professor Dave. It's a channel name. Like, who cares? I'm not really a bird, right? I might look like one, maybe.
Professor just means teacher in French and Portuguese. I don't know if any other languages employ this.
The beak. Yeah, it's such a non-thing. These people they do that to shit on other people that they disagree with. Not a.
Everybody loves memes and everybody loves crypto scams. So why don't we take the crypto scams and turn them into memes? Undeniable logic. Yes, that's precisely where the industry is at right now. And one of the biggest possible examples ever just happened in real time. Brace yourselves for a banger of a CoffeeZilla video on it soon, because the Hawk Tua girl over in
of the interpretation of quantum mechanics is due to the fact that the whole quantum mechanics was analyzed in the wrong way from the beginning. What do I mean by that? You know that quantum mechanics started in two separate directions. First,
something is wrong with his tongue. His tongue, he is not flexible. He's not drinking enough water. He's dehydrated.
First came Heisenberg with his metric formulation, and this was at first led to a very nice answers about the harmonic oscillator and hydrogen atom, but the minute when they tried to do a more complicated problem, it was very, very difficult mathematically. Then came Schrödinger, and the approach of Schrödinger that followed the Broglie idea was so nice mathematically that people assume that because of that, that is the best way to approach quantum mechanics, the wave picture. But the wave picture from the beginning was the wrong idea. Why? De Broglie said that because in the electromagnetic case, we have the classical wave, and then the particles, which are the photons, later were called photons. Then de Broglie said it must be the same thing for the particles. Classical particles must also have wave properties. But what de Broglie did not realize, and all the other people that followed him did not realize, is the fact that in the electromagnetic case, an individual photon doesn't have any wave property, because the wave properties have to do with the electric and magnetic field, and the electric and magnetic fields are complementary to the photons. So in order to have wave properties, you must have a large number, in fact, a certain large number of photons. So individual photon doesn't have wave property, and therefore individual particle doesn't have wave property, if the analogy is correct. And indeed, when you look at the Schrödinger representation, you write the vector in Hilbert space as superposition of amplitude psi of x times eigentheta position. That amplitude psi of x can never be measured when you have just a single particle. Because you look at two different psi of x, they are not corresponding to orthogonal vectors, and therefore they cannot be checked experimentally for a single particle. You can check psi of x only when you have an ensemble of particles. So if we want to understand the reality of a single particle, we have to look for something else, not for psi of x, which cannot be observed for individual particles. So here comes Heisenberg picture for our aid. Let me show you how in the Heisenberg picture, you can follow the reality of individual particles and see the interference phenomena in a completely different way. So what is the Heisenberg approach? Heisenberg says that we have to look on particles by looking at observables which are functions of position and momentum. And we have to look at these functions, how they change as a function of time. These are the metric formulations of Heisenberg. And we can ask the following question. If we have a vector in Hilbert space, we can characterize this vector not by its coefficient of expansion in positional representation as Schroeder done, but we can ask the question, what are all the operators A, N, which are the observables, for which the vector psi is an eigenvector? This is the opposite question of the usual one. Usually we say, given an operator, what are all the eigenfunctions of the operator? Here we ask the question, given a vector in Hilbert space, what are all the operators for which this vector is an eigenvector? Why? Because if we look at only this subset of operators, we can measure them without determining at all the vector. If we can show that the set of all eigenoperators completely characterize psi, then by following their evolution, we can find out what happens in time to a single particle. Now, indeed, if we look at all the set of operators, they completely define a single psi. Let's see a simple example. Suppose I have just a simple Hilbert space of 4 dimensions, and look at the vector 1, 0, 0, 0. I ask, what are all the Hermitian matrices for which this vector is an eigenvector? These are all the matrices that have arbitrary entrance here, 0 here, 0 here, and anything here. If we look at all these operators, this is an eigenvector for these operators. And this is the only eigenvector. Anything else will make some of these matrices not.
Yeah, I have to study Dirac notation and stuff. I still don't know it well enough to understand what he's trying to say.
So Lonabox uploaded a video pertaining to respond to my 2 videos on him. And I actually think this is the first response video ever uploaded that was responded to already in advance. Because this guy is so incredibly lazy, so like tuned out of making anything of any worth, that his idea of a response was to take the stream VOD that I had already responded to and just cut it up and try to turn it into some sort of coherent response to me. To be clear, that is the stream VOD that my second response video already responded to. So I uploaded this video, How to Defend Genocide. Then like a week or so later, Lonabox responded on a stream, and the VOD was still there after that. And then I responded to the VOD, but he privated the VOD once he realized that I was planning to respond to it and hid the evidence. So it was like a response based on notes that I had taken on the VOD before he hid it. And that was like two or so weeks ago. He hit the VOD about 2.5 weeks ago. And now what he did is he went back to the original video of his stream that I had already responded to and chopped it up to try and formulate a response. I've never seen anything as stupid as someone already having that video responded to before they even uploaded it. He didn't even feel the need to adapt. He didn't even feel the need to put any effort in. He just took the VOD and chopped it up. And well, before we begin here, I believe it is very interesting because now he has actually unprivated that VOD. But there is something about this that is perhaps a bit off. You know, why would someone who had nothing to hide their VOD for 3 weeks and then suddenly make it public? Well, it's because he had something to hide. Let me show you. So if you don't know, on YouTube, after you've already uploaded a video or whatever, you can go back and delete portions of that video, whether it's a stream VOD or whatever type of video it is, you can do that. So let's go here to the timestamp of around 1:32:08. Around here. Let's watch what happens here when he is going over the X-rays and the children shot in the head. Let's watch what happens here.
Like there's a spotter, a sniper, a commander. They're like 1,000 meters away and they see a kid and they just go, okay, get him in the head, go. You have to show me that. You have no evidence for that. While I'm inclined to believe that a non-zero number of these killings were done intentionally and in a criminal fashion. And this is only some of the pictures.
What happened there? This is a live stream VOD. How is it just a random cut in a live stream VOD? What happened there? Now you might notice here that, now look at the chat. If you can zoom in on the chat, I'll full screen it so you can see it. Now let's look at the chat before and after the cut. Look at it. And now let's see what happens in 2 seconds.
And in a criminal fashion. And this is only some of the pictures. Again,
completely different, right? And now we can see, for some context as to what Lonabox was talking about, because you can see the reaction of the chat. I'm sure someone's already said it, but the images are definitely faked. No deformity in the rounds. So we have literally like completely different. All these messages are gone after cut, which was intentionally edited out by Lonerbox from the VOD.
And in a criminal phase.
And the chat is clearly full of people who are denying that these X-rays are real. It's very interesting, isn't it? That there just happens to be a portion of this VOD that is now missing. Where if you look at the chat, which is still there, he forgot to blur that out, I guess, didn't cover his tracks well enough. You can clearly see that people in the chat are denying the veracity of these images. I think that's very interesting, isn't it? Now, I don't like to cover things that have already been covered by others in basically the same way that I would cover them. I feel like it's a waste of time. So for like the first part of his video, he spends literally, I shit you not, like 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, changing his argument.
So what are you claiming, that Israeli snipers are trying to execute children? What's your evidence for that? I mean, that's okay. What's your evidence? I mean, I can accuse you of doing the same. It was you. You did it. You went to Gaza and you're a sniper and you shot children in the head. And I can say that without any evidence, just like you can say stuff without any evidence. So that's terrific. Let's accuse each other of nonsense without any evidence. Let me see, any notifications? The biggest carnivore, Liberty, flammable, maths uploaded, how to solve Amazon's hanging cable, interview question, your voice matters, South Korea vote. Yeah, but why isn't Al Jazeera covering Al-Assad regime, Syria, Tusi, Assad's family on the run? This is interesting. This is very likely the end of Assad. I don't see him come. I don't see his family coming back. I mean, he could have made peace with Israel. He could have. It could have been great, but he chose to align himself with Iran. Really weird, because he is a surgeon. He's an eye surgeon. He came back from England when his father died to take over his country, Syria. But Syria is run, it's Marxist. Syria is socialist. So of course it's going to be ruthless and terrible. What do you expect? And George Galloway, who is like an incredible, he is such an anti-Semite, and why is he not talking about Assad falling apart? This is devastating for Putin. I mean, this is completely destroying Putin. I mean, now, yeah, this is. So what I'm thinking is that
it's happening, but
Biden decided to bring down Assad before Trump is inaugurated, because once Trump is in, Trump would never have allowed Assad to fall. I don't think so. Trump doesn't like changes. Trump is, I think he's afraid of, like, people are still PTSD'd over what happened in Iraq, that a regime change did not work out. So I think Trump would have defended Assad and protected him. That's my intuition. And Biden knows this. So Biden decided to bring down Assad before Trump moves in, which is basically what Hillary Clinton was trying to do. I mean, Hillary Clinton created Al-Qaeda in Syria in order to bring down Assad. That was what she was trying to do in order to defend Israel. It didn't work out. I mean, because Al-Qaeda started executing Americans. I mean, because you're dealing with, people who are extreme, fundamentalists, Muslim fundamentalists. So it backfired, but that was her intention. I think she was cooperating with the Israelis. The Israelis and I think the CIA and the Mossad is Al-Qaeda. That's my intuition. It's a little bit conspiratorial, but there's evidence that Israel was involved with Al Qaeda, probably trained them. They did come, their wounded were sent to Israeli hospitals. So, what more evidence do you need?
But why? I mean, it's crazy that we're talking about stacking a rocket that's going to launch potentially 18 months from now. I mean, really?
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, this seems kind of weird.
I mean, that's how it might have worked 50 years ago, but this is the year 2024. You know,
we do not fly until we are ready. We do not fly until we are confident that we have made the flight as safe as possible for the humans on board.
Well, we got a little update on our return to the moon, and according to Bill Nelson, we're likely going to be China, but apparently we're not going to see the moon landing attempt until at least mid-2027, and we won't see Artemis 2, which is the flyby with crew, until April of 2026. So yes, there have been a ton of shakeups recently and announcements within NASA, including the fact that Jared Isaacman will now be the head of NASA thanks to President Trump. But Bill Nelson gave an update on Artemis, and we learned that they are going to keep the Artemis 2
They should throw Artemis to the garbage. What a waste of money. Every penny on Artemis is a waste of money.
plan as is. But they were having problems with Orion's heat shield, so what they're going to do to solve that issue is modifying the re-entry trajectory to address concerns with that heat shield. So I wanted to talk to Eric Berger about this. He is a space industry expert, and he says that it's good that NASA finally confirmed Artemis 2 won't happen next year, but he says what they won't say today, but he thinks is a very real possibility, is that Artemis 2 won't fly on the SLS rocket either. What do you think about the update and sort of the resolution with the heat shield issue?
Well, it's nothing we haven't been reporting for months. Both my colleague and I, Stephen Clark, have been talking for quite a while that NASA was expected to stay with the Orion heat shield as is.
Terrible.
Hello, everyone. Here we go. We are looking at some more stuff to do with gravity. So we're going to look at some weird concepts. Terminal velocity, sometimes hard to understand, but it's nothing in comparison to the other things I'm going to show you today. The idea of whether or not you're feeling acceleration when you're undergoing or giving into gravity. Look at the term weightlessness and why it's a terrible name, and also look at the so-called force of gravity. It'll make more sense once we get through it all. So let's look at the idea of terminal velocity first. Just videos here. Video for you. Terminal velocity. So terminal velocity, the sky there, right? Yeah.
When a skydiver jumps out of the plane at 3,000 meters, the speed goes through some big changes.
So notice the speeds increase for quite a while, and then they're staying steady at about 55 meters per second. And then decrease to a much slower terminal velocity of about 5. So they'll show later on the idea of the forces and so on. So here we go.
The floor of the plane provides a counterforce that balances the downward force of gravity.
So think of F net, red one and the green one, add up to 0, 0 acceleration vertically, right? So F net equals 0, acceleration equals 0. Once the red force of the bottom of the plane is gone, you're going to accelerate due to gravity.
Right? Gravity immediately pulls her towards the ground, and she starts to accelerate downwards. But air resistance is acting in the opposite direction. The faster she falls, the greater the air resistance. Eventually,
you're in constant motion. You're in what's called terminal velocity. So you can control it a little bit, but really terminal velocity is just a...
When forces are balanced,
then you open the parachute.
To slow down, the upward force needs to be greater than the downward force. When the parachute opens, air resistance suddenly becomes much greater than gravity. The forces are no longer balanced.
So now you've got a net force up, your velocity is down, and so we know that causes you to slow down in the opposite direction.
These are two different terminal velocities. Both are terminal. So in both cases, you experience 1g.
So we talked about the direction of acceleration lesson and so on.
Before you open the parachute and after you open the parachute, you're still in terminal velocity. You're experiencing 1g. Internally, inside your body, you're experiencing 1g. So if you had an accelerometer, it would register 1g.
Right? And eventually you slow down to the point where now your air resistance is going to match your gravity. You're making your resistance get smaller and smaller until they're balanced again.
Balances gravity again. And she reaches.
Right? So now those are the physics concepts of terminal velocity that we are well equipped to understand, of course. So you've got the idea of you're accelerating down at full 9.8. You have your force down, right? And then with some air resistance, you're going to have the force of gravity balanced by a little bit of an upwards force.
No. Oh, okay. It's slowing down, and then you stop accelerating.
And a match here, right? So, close enough. F net equals the force of air resistance. So, and yeah, so in each case you've got, in this case, you just have F net just equals gravity, right? There's no air resistance yet, so it's just the FG. And then here, so there's none of these guys here. And then in this one, of course, you've got, I use red there, but I'll number. As I want to think of it. They're the same things. E net equals 0. Analysis to do with no day. Needs to stamp in seconds from the slow motion. I've done in the past with class. So the next part of this lesson, your brain's going to try to tell you that I'm lying, basically. I'm going to try to prevent you from understanding this. Your everyday experiences seem to conduct. If I ask people which rectangle is darker, people would say this one. But if I'm feeling it's tricking you, is your brain. In this case here, shadow area. So they're actually the same brightness. I really like a quick screen. Another example of your brain damage, because in this situation, it turns out the number of it's magnified because it's near the horizon. That's not true. Right? There isn't a magnification effect due to the refraction, due to the near the horizon. In terms of what's far away ants, clearly this was a crazy one. I couldn't believe when I saw this how accurate this is. And I put a third band back there. It's gigantic. Right? All your brain is doing is interpreting this band as being farther away. And so if something looks just as big as when it's close to you, when it's far away, then it has to be gigantic. Right? I'll say that again. Like if something looks just as big to you, even though it's super far away, it has to be gigantic. So like I tried to do in the past, like drawings of trees. You know, if I drew a tree.
That's fascinating. So they're all the same size, but because of a perspective view, the brain interprets the rightmost van as bigger. Wow.
Here, this dude, here's my whole better do with the actual smartboard. My mouse drawing skills are even worse than my what did I need? Right there. Wow. More of it. So a little bigger. Just your brain trying to make sense of the world here was smaller than the way it is. That's how your brain is. The other ones are the same size. Right? Anyways, so that's why it's gonna be hard to sort of let's go to the right and the left. And I'll do it again later in the video. Right, so let's do that first. To the right. I'll just play that again. There we go. You see real time here. Accelerate to the right and then to the left to slow down. So speeding up and slowing down. Right after one down. And I'm gonna be accelerating, so it's gonna be sitting there in front of the camera. One down. Right. Stationary clearly is obviously recognized. That's the acceleration. So
what is
that
his
part sitting there in
point?
this position, the sensor thinks it's accelerating.
So he's
right?
not some conspiracy theorist, apparently. He's just teaching physics. But there's no description. Like, I don't know anything about this. He's a physics teacher. He's just a teacher.
All right, here's a quick demo to help us understand why the fact that all objects accelerate at the same rate due to gravity seems really odd and misleading, and people don't tend to believe it. So here's a quick demonstration of acceleration due to gravity of these two objects. Clearly, they're going to be.
All right, so he's a normal guy.
There are so many
was expecting a conspiracy theorist.
Examples of dynamical systems. And the more you study them, the more you'll start to notice them in your everyday life. A bouncing ball, traffic flow, vortex formation, magnetic levitation, planetary orbits, the Lorentz attractor, and so on. They are not exactly the same, but these are all examples of dynamical systems. A fair question to ask right off the bat is, what is a system?
A system in this context is used. These changes can be continued to T is a continuous the previous position.
Like chaotic weather patterns, for example, even though they're being governed by deterministic rules. Let us see our first concrete example. Keep in mind, though, that we'll start with a very simple example, and then we're going to build up to more complex ones by the end of the video. X with respect to time represents the rate of change of the position, and thus describes how fast the pendulum is swinging. Together, position and velocity fully describes the pendulum state at any equation of motion. The second derivative of x plus g over L sine of x equals 0 in Newton's notation, or we can use Leibniz notation. And here g is the gravitational acceleration. In other words, it's a constant, and L is the pendulum's length. This is not the most accurate representation in the notation. And here
Newton is the one that came up with the double dot? And Leibniz came up with the D? That's fascinating. Wow, Newton is so efficient.
Here g is the gravitational acceleration. In other words, it's a constant, and L is the pendulum's length. This is not the most accurate representation in the context of dynamical systems, though. In dynamical systems, we would rather plot a state space, which describes the main quantities here, namely the position and the velocity.
Wow.
Before moving on, let's see some important definitions. The first, stable or attracting rest point. This is a point where the system does not change over time. In other words, the derivatives of all state variables are 0. Small perturbations return to the equilibrium point. The second, unstable or repelling point, which is also a saddle point. This is a rest point as well, but this time, small perturbations grow, moving the system away. And the third, separatrix. This is a trajectory that divides different types of motion. It separates stable and unstable regions, or periodic and non-periodic behaviors. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like it and to subscribe to the channel. Closed orbits or closed trajectories represent stable motion. On the other hand, divergent orbits represent unstable motion. Let's see how to physically interpret each trajectory in the state space diagram. A more realistic situation would be one with damping, in which a point traveling in the state space would show a spiraling behavior towards the equilibrium point.
We've been talking about trajectories here, but it's time to be more specific now. An interesting type of trajectory, or orbit, they're the same thing, is the quasi-periodic orbit. These are trajectories that never exactly repeat, but can densely fill a toroidal surface in the state space. But wait a second, what does a torus have anything to do with the state space of this dynamical system? Well, this is quite interesting. Let's take a look at the pendulum state space again. We notice that there is a pattern that repeats itself over and over again. Since the angular position x is periodic for intervals of length 2 pi, we can wrap the horizontal boundaries from minus pi to pi to form a cylinder. Additionally, if we consider the energy levels, which are called isoenergy orbits, the structure of the phase space suggests a repeating pattern for bounded trajectories. By compactifying angular velocities along energy levels, we can create a 2D toroidal representation. All we did here was glue the top with the bottom of the cylinder. So the torus compactly encodes all the bounded oscillatory motions, but it does not describe trajectories corresponding to unbounded, so rotational motion. This is very useful because mathematically, it is easier to study periodic orbits and flows on a torus since it is a well-defined bounded manifold. Here, S1 is the unit circle. This sort of X is the Cartesian product, and T2 is the 2D torus that results from the operation. The motion on...
I don't understand this notation. I don't know why he took... Why is he playing around with the manifold? What's the point?
Such a torus can often be described by angular coordinates, phi1 and phi2, where time evolution is governed by linear equations like these two. So again, phi1 and phi2 are angular positions on the torus, just like latitude and longitude. Omega 1 and omega 2 are the angular velocities for time t. Phi1 0 and phi2 0 are the initial conditions, so for time t equals 0. This quantity, mu, which is defined as omega 2 divided by omega 1, is called the frequency ratio of the flow. There are two...
I'm lost. I don't understand. But it's interesting.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your friendly neighborhood Birdman here. I was doing some research while working on my flat Zoid response, and to my surprise, he made another video, this time looking at Professor Dave. If you don't know Professor Dave, he's a big creator here on YouTube. He talks about science, and he does do debunking type videos. So Dave responded to Lord Jamar, the same exact video that I did, and Flat Zoid had something to say about it. Now, the reason I know about this is because I was looking at Flat Zoid's channel because I'm working on a response to his response to my response. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your friendly...
Everybody loves memes and everybody loves crypto scams. So why don't we take the crypto scams and turn it into memes? Undeniable logic. Yes, that's precisely where the industry is at right now, and one of the biggest possible examples ever just happened in real time. Brace yourselves for a banger of a CoffeeZilla video on it soon, because the Hawk Tua girl, overnight famous after she said Hawk Tua during a random interview, and the internet decided to just obsess over it. The Hawk Tua girl offered up her own crypto token, which went to a $500 million valuation almost instantly before cratering and basically losing everyone's money, except the insiders. They all kind of got rich. Actually, side note, she has the third most popular podcast in the entire United States, which I did not know before making this video. It's behind Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan. She's third, which is kind of insane when you think about it, but I didn't realize she was actually that popular. So this kind of all makes a little bit more sense in that context. Massive influencer, crypto token, rug pull scam, everybody loses money, right? When you put it in that lens, like, makes a lot more sense. But yeah, I realized that after scripting the video, so I added it in postscript. Continuing. I'm not gonna make this one overly complicated with the tokenomics or the blockchain analysis type stuff because that'll come later. Somebody is definitely catching charges over all of this. We just don't know who it is yet, and there's gonna be plenty of people picking through the ledgers and tracking down wallets in the coming days. However, since I just got done listening to a Twitter Spaces, which is a really stupid format for discussing anything, but it is what it is. Since I just got done listening to one of those like Twitter podcasts about everything.
Why is a Twitter Space a terrible format? I don't get it. People keep complaining. I don't understand. Why are people complaining about X space format? Captures the rocket. SpaceX. So let's write Twitter Space. What are Twitter Spaces? How to become a Twitter Space? Twitter Spaces glitches. Speaks live on Twitter Space. Let's just say Twitter Space bad. Twitter Space format bad. How to end or leave Twitter Space. Twitter Spaces chat with journalists. Working for Elon Musk, ex-employees.
Talking Elon, you need to be concise, quick.
There's definitely 2 a.m. texts and 6 a.m. conference calls.
When I used to go into meetings with him, I used to always stop by our barista and I would get a couple espressos and chug that down and then go into the meetings.
He has never said this, but I've watched it. You have 30 seconds to make your point.
Elon Musk is known by his employees to be intense. When he took over Tesla in 2008, he sent the company into crisis mode to jumpstart his vision of how to reinvent the auto industry. Now, he appears to be using a similar management playbook to remake Twitter.
This is a Strawn-based. It's a walking skeleton that's powered only by the wind. created by Dutch inventor Theo Janssen. There are no motors and no
This is really brilliant because this shows you how animals walk. A lot of the movement of animals is built in to the skeleton. The animal actually needs to do very little in order to move. Very little thinking goes into motion, because the skeleton does a lot of the work.
electronics, and they are made of the weirdest materials.
Tape and glue and snot and screws and gets that force to.
That's disgusting.
So wait, maybe you've heard this week there's some news with Don Lemon, and he's here today, journalist Don Lemon.
Journalist. Okay, I don't understand why people keep complaining. No one explains. I mean, why are they complaining? They always complain. It's so terrible. Twitter Spaces is so terrible. Twitter Spaces are so. Oh, there's no autocomplete here. Are so terrible. Exclusivity. Many users feel that Twitter Spaces is exclusive, with requirements such as having 600 plus followers to host a space, which can be a barrier for newer or smaller accounts. Technical issues. Users have reported limited features, lack of nuance, harassment, limited audience engagement. While Twitter Spaces can facilitate live engagement, some users feel that it may not be as effective as other platforms. Yeah, but people complain. Potential solutions: simplify hosting, enhance moderation, develop and implement effective moderation tools. So there's no moderation tools? Okay. Foster audience. I don't understand. Like, you hear people complaining like it's the worst thing since ever. But I don't understand why.
Of the interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Okay. All right.
Derived from the Schrodinger equation. This is not positive. The state of U is entangled with the state of the cat. Okay, this is a prediction of the Schrodinger equation. It's not something we magically invented. It's something that has to be true if you're any good at all at noticing whether cats are awake or asleep. If that's the case, then given the setup of the Schrodinger's cat box experiment, this is the state that you and the cat will evolve into.
My question is, so I wrote papers specifically these notebooks. I don't remember which one was the best one. This is the 50%. How did I accomplish 50%? Just by using random. I randomized the probability but always at 50%. This is probability up on particle B. But this is not a weighted random. I need to wait. I need to create a weighted coin. This is not a weighted coin. I need to actually have randomness. I need to have a random coin. I mean, it's the cosine squared of half the angle is correct, but then I'm always comparing it to a random number. So I'm always randomizing. I shouldn't always randomize. Probability up. This is so confusing because it gives you a probability. This is so confusing. Anyway, so a particle needs to decide if it's going to be up or down. So it does the calculation. How probable is it that it's going to be up? And then it compares it to a flip of a coin. Now the flip of the coin is uniform. It's uniformly random. It's spread from 0 to 1. And the probability, this is so confusing. The probability is it's also spread, but it depends on the angle. So if it's aligned, if the angle is 0, the cosine of 0 is 1. So the probability is 1. Now here, there's a bunch of experiments. Then they're all using, see, they're all using the same particle. This is the particle. So all these tests are using the same particle. So here's the particle. So this first experiment, so angle A, right, this is the spin. This is the spin. It should really be called spin. Anyway, but then you ask particle A, measure yourself relative to 0. The angle is 0, perfectly up, let's say. And how often do you come up? And only when you do come up are we going to run the test for particle B. We're going to measure particle B along all the angles from 0 to 360 randomly. So particle A measured up, and particle B is measured along any angle. But it's randomized, but it's perfectly randomized, which is, I think this is why it's getting the wrong result, because you see that it doesn't reach 1 and it doesn't reach 0. It's 6, 7, it looks like 75% and 25%. So it's only 1/2. We're only getting half of the data. This is because this is incorrect. This is incorrect. You don't want to always randomize. I think that's the reason. You don't want to always completely uniformly randomize every measurement. The amount you randomize right, the probability up, this should create a weighted coin. And then you want to flip on this weighted coin. So if the coin is 1, then flipping the coin always gives you 1. And 0 always gives you 0. And 50% gives you 50%. But 45 degrees should give you 15%, for example, instead of 25%. So the probability up, and this, so instead of you want to flip the coin with the probability up as the weight of the coin. The probability up is the weight of the coin, and then you flip the coin. Basically, what you want to so what are we aiming for? So if we look at, I think this paper. No. We did have a paper, black deriving gravitational, no quantum entanglement. Maybe this. Yeah. This is from Fermilab. This is from Professor Lincoln, Don Lincoln. So I don't want this arrow. This is a terrible arrow. Can we... Let's just take this graph. Can we just have that? No, impossible. Anyway, I gotta run. I'll be back. Let's stop here. Let's take a break. And we'll be back.